And throw up today's agenda. So this one's just kind of a recap. We did this earlier on in the project, but I don't think you were here when we did this. Have you ever seen this icebreaker exercise? I know you've gone through a couple trainings before.
Yeah, but no, I've never done anything called an icebreaker with you, I don't think.
Okay, so this, if we were in a room, so like we did this earlier on in the project a couple months ago, and so I'm going to talk you through it, and then you're just going to have to visualize how this worked. So, the whole point of this exercise is to underscore the importance of iterations being useful when you're talking about non-standard things. So what I did in the first day is I teased everyone, and I said, all right, I need a volunteer for the icebreaker. And basically, there was two people in the room. They were developers who were not allowed to see these pieces of paper, and then there were the other parts that were the customers that were giving the requirements, and they all got these pieces of paper. So I said, okay, need someone to be a customer. Pick which one you want your developer to code, and you're not allowed to see. I gave the developers a dry erase marker and a board, and the developers were not allowed to make eye contact with the customer, and vice versa, and the customer just had to say with words what the requirements are. So exercise one was pretty successful. Everyone always picks the one on the right because it has the most standard sizes, and the person says, well, I want a circle with an X in it. The developer always nails it, and turn around and say, customer, did the developer make what you wanted? Yes. Great. Then we do this next one, kind of emboldens the audience. And then we have the next one where they take this next exercise, same situation. Customers not allowed to look at the developer. They're not allowed to give any feedback because they can't see what the developer is drawing. And they now have to describe what this is. Well, they kind of, the concept of a cylinder is common, but everything else seems to start to break down. And so normally, I let the customer and developer struggle for about 5 minutes while everyone in the class kind of chuckles. And then I said, well, all right, well, let's simulate what it'd be like if you had, real-time feedback, more iteration. So the customer was allowed to turn around and watch the developer, prototype the requirements on the board. And that way the customer could give very specific feedback and say, oh no, that line's supposed to be like whatever, a certain way, and give them the fine grain instructions. But the reason why I bring that up is two parts. One is iteration is important, but also we're kind of in this one part of our project where I call it the horse trading part of the project, where we had certain design expectations that we received, that the customer had. In fact, I'm going to pull up that. Do you know that that diagram where it shows what the BA thinks, the customer thinks?
Oh, with the tree and swing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a wonderful diagram.
That is what we have going on right now. So the customer thought one thing, the analyst thought another, the prototyper thought something else. And this most recent one is we're starting to find out this concept of bootstrap. What is it, and how does that impact us? Because it appears that is one of the controlling things that we have in our project. And you take a look at, I'm going to put in this image that we have. Here's just kind of an example, and this will be our lead into kind of studying bootstrap, is we kind of have this same type of thing. If I had to do all over again, I would probably do this graphic and superimpose the developer cartoon. So we have this CMS style guide, which is really awesome. You see it, being very efficient, taking up use of all the space here. You also notice that it's text, which is one of the easiest things to have styled.
Right.
Then we have a prototype. We just look to further simplify it. Instead of having three different types of sizes, let's just have two. And since it's a portal, that means there's some boundaries you have to appreciate, which is you have to allow other applications to coexist with you with this design. And then we take a look at what the application's doing in WebSphere, and turns out that our assumption of perhaps having a container that's always 669 pixels wide might be misinformed. Because when you take a look at the real screen, it doesn't seem to quite resemble this and take up the full real estate as we would like to see kind of in the CMS style guide. So we kind of have two forces in play here, and I've kind of prototyped a couple things, but we have Twitter Bootstrap, which is kind of like the spandex of the web design. It's really nice. It keeps everything snappy and close together, but it doesn't give you a fixed width. So spandex is not necessarily a great thing to have hardened items in there, such as like a date control or text control. Those are hard items. Those don't expand and contract as nicely as, say, words, which know how to automatically resize and wrap and respond to things getting bigger and smaller. So what I think we have is we have this Twitter Bootstrap spandexing going around here, keeping all this CMS stuff stuffed into the center, going on that analogy. And then we're trying to figure out how that will play against our user interface requirements, which is we need a predictable screen size in order to build it. So anyways, we've kind of tinkered with a couple things, but not too much in terms of responsive design. So today we are going to go into advanced styling concepts. We're going to take a look at, so that was the icebreaker exercise. We're kind of just going through. These are the different shapes and that we're taking a look at. The customer thought about this shape, and we interpreted it to mean this shape, and it looks like this shape is even, more different. It doesn't seem to resemble what we have over here. So we're still kind of going around, but what we would like to do is we do know that there's some standards we're working with. And Twitter Bootstrap, that's what we're going to go over today. But also Dojo is an important JavaScript library too, because that is the library which IBM uses to be able to transfer information across these autonomous portlets. And then also just going to kind of reinstate this thing called Font Awesome. It keeps on coming back. Font Awesome is the what Twitter Bootstrap uses. So my thought is we can kind of go in, we could take a look at Twitter Bootstrap and see some of the components that are there, see how to access it, and then figure out the best way to kind of incorporate this style. Sure. So Twitter Bootstrap is an open source JavaScript CSS framework. And it uses this kind of popular code sharing thing, which actually just started up for people who jam too. So when we start to come up with our own iBlocks or things like that, we can have our own space on GitHub. So anyways, here is Twitter Bootstrap's GitHub location. There's a couple different places there. I've just gone into Bootstrap. That's the most popular. And I just did a pull from the master branch. I brought that down to my desktop. I haven't figured out how to get that the GitHub cloning thing, but I'm not too concerned with it because I'm more of a reader at this point than a writer.
Right.
But we can take a look at Bootstrap, and then I have there's some kind of starter components, and one of the things that's different about the Twitter Bootstrap library compared to like jQuery is it's largely style driven. The good news is that reduces your need to know code. A lot of it is you just kind of define it right on the control. You put a class right here. So I have I downloaded a copy already of, see, gotta follow my mouse to the right. Okay, so I downloaded a copy of that right here, and before I go too far into it, I wanted to just point out something. Where is it? I think we have, oh, it's probably all on here. You'll notice that these controls are very similar to these controls. And the reason why is Twitter Bootstrap uses Font Awesome controls. So the neat thing, all these controls are in Font Awesome. So in terms of recreating these, that's kind of, and Font Awesome is used in several of the other ones. So it's interesting because they deviate from the naming. So what Twitter Bootstrap refers to as Glypicon new window, Font Awesome uses a friendlier name called External Link. I don't understand why they wouldn't just repeat the same thing, but you'll see those guys are identical. And in prior sessions, I've shown how you can just recreate that. And where's Glypicon? Do you know what Glypicon even stands for? Never heard of Glypicon.
An icon I think of as just an icon. The answer is no.
Okay, graphic. Okay.
An icon. A glyph means some certain style of icon, right? That it's a glyph as opposed to something else. And I'm trying to think of another type of icon.
Yeah, but I guess they call them all Glypicons. But I would just call it Font Awesome External because Font Awesome's the one who invented the thing. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out.
So is it the name of the set, though? Because Font Awesome also has what I think of as standard fonts, like Arial and whatnot, where this is Glyphicon.
Well, Font Awesome is, it does have your traditional letters, but it exists only primarily for its special character set, if you take a look. So if you were in Font Awesome and, you typed in A would show up. Oops. Right. They have your standard fonts. I assume they did. Maybe they don't. But my main reason, my understanding, the main reason why Font Awesome exists is because of its reserved set of fonts, which are somewhere near the bottom here.
Oh.
Oops. The private use range. And this is why Font Awesome exists.
Well, see, that's interesting because I like that, I'm learning here, I don't know, but I thought one of the main reasons Font Awesome exists was you had the problem before Font Awesome and products like Font Awesome. Designers would design using a font that was simply installed on people's desktops, like on a Windows computer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but then someone brought up the page, if they didn't happen to have that font, it would be translated into a different font. So one of the big advantages of this approach is that in your header, you could define the fonts in terms of going to a specific URL on a Google server and getting the font that would be used on the page so that everyone, when they went there, got the information about the font that they needed and then also was given via the internet access to the font they needed, which was the weakness in the old way.
And that is the case. This, as opposed to other libraries, this is a non-proprietary, completely open. So Font Awesome has a GitHub site, just like Bootstrap, and you can pull it down. But the standards that it seeks to socialize are the images, as opposed to making an H look like an H.
Yeah, yeah.
So
well, yeah, but I guess I always thought, I assumed that it started out with making an H look like an H, but that's pretty mundane. And so most of the interest really went to these
controls,
glyph icons. Yeah, because once you kind of just define, okay, we want to make the font look like this, and Font Awesome had some fonts for that, well, then the real thing that was interesting were all these glyphs, and I could make all my buttons and all my iconography also out of Font Awesome.
Yeah. And that's the part. Yeah. So instead of standardizing what an H looks like, they're standardizing what does a download look like.
Yeah, and I guess I just thought that was an extension of what an H looked like. The hello world of using Font Awesome was just to use a Font Awesome font so that all of your letters look the same all across the internet. But that's kind of home after you do it once. Well, then the icons are the interesting part, and that's why they get so much more play, so much more development time and everything.
Exactly, and this is and one of the things that's nice is that it uses vector graphics. So as opposed to using traditional icons, you can make it as large as you want, and you're not going to have that weird, I don't know what it is, pixelation or what have you. But yeah, that's my understanding. My only experience with Font Awesome has just been being my poor man's graphic designer.
Yeah. Well, and that's I'm not a graphic designer. I wish I were.
So, anyways, all the websites, they seem to be coming up with these new controls. These controls are all standardized and represented here in Font Awesome. So,
isn't there a Font Awesome font that also has like common logos? Like the Coca-Cola logo and stuff.
At present, they do not have Coca-Cola. They have LinkedIn, YouTube. Here's YouTube,
okay.
WordPress. But as companies, begin to, in order to be here, to have your icons in there, you have to agree to the common sharing. And so perhaps trademark or whatever, some companies might not want at this point to have their logo as easily accessible.
And that makes sense. The new online companies would want their logo to be easily accessible and widespread, where the old time would feel that they want to keep that proprietary.
Yeah, and I would almost suspect too that if in order to even be allowed to pass off your own company's logo, you might need to be a contributor too. I don't know, but I mean, because I know IBM uses this, and I don't see an IBM icon or logo here. So, anyways, good speculation as to how some companies get in there. But yeah, so some of the companies do exist. And I guess all the adapters, obviously. So since YouTube uses Font Awesome, it would make sense that YouTube also decided to use Font Awesome to manage their logos too.
Well, and again, just speculating, the other thing is that YouTube is something that you might want to put as a link on a page.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, any logo you might want to put as a link on a page, but YouTube you would commonly put as a link on the page.
Yes.
More so than a lot of proprietary logos. So it makes more sense to put them in a font.
More social media. Perhaps it's the social media happens to be the trend with all the company logos that we have here.
Yeah, because you notice that it's Tumblr and YouTube, and I'm assuming that somewhere in there is Twitter.
Yes.
Kind of thing where there are links on the page so that you can have that logo. Logo.
So, anyways, that's want to just kind of point that out that all these icons, and so since I think Twitter, or since Font Awesome is the source, I'm going to treat it like font, at least with my naming. I'm probably going to keep my naming. I'm going to probably give tribute to Font Awesome. It'd be hard for me to switch over and start calling these Clipicon users. So, and also when we go over our technique, the way that we would make any of these icons you have to figure out where this icon is, and it's much easier just to grab it from your Font Awesome library. So if we keep their naming convention, you can find it quicker. So anyway, so these are all the different controls, but as a difference to most of the code, or to some of the other code libraries like jQuery, the convention for invoking a lot of Twitter Bootstrap is simply just kind of putting in some of your span classes. So I put an example. I've got something running right now, and Sean, if you want to download and follow along, you can do it too. All you have to do is you go to GitHub. Try not to say all you have to do, but you go to GitHub, go to Bootstrap, and you hit download zip. I already downloaded a zip, so it's my second one. And I have my delete everyday folder. And just kind of pull your file right in there into your Bootstrap master. And I've got one that I'm opening up right now under the starter template, and we can start to kind of go through, take a look at Twitter Bootstrap, and then see how we would simulate some of these items. Are there, Sean, specific? And then one thing I want to kind of point out, I kind of say for my observation is that text has already kind of solved the problem of what happens when the screen gets too big or too small. You can see this like right now, and like if I open up PowerPoint, the concept of what to do with text that's too big. Let me show you real quick. I'm going to pull up a lorem ipsum generator. All right. Going to just drop a little lorem ipsum and insert. Yeah, we have this issue right here of this is too big, and text is seems to be able to resize. You can kind of just fit it in the page, and the technology seems to exist knowing already what you do with text. When I expand it, it already seems to know that if I make the text box wider to bring the text up, and it knows how to kind of respond to the size of the screen.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, that's one of the benefits of a read-only website. But when you get to something where you have a user control, like a button that you have to press, or maybe not even a button, but like a text box, this one doesn't respond. It doesn't. There's not really a convention for text boxes to get smaller, and maybe that's because when it comes to user entry, it needs to be fixed sized. But anyways, I was going to point that out. All the Fawn Awesome examples I seem to see are all showing text responding to different screen dimensions. But let's take a look at. So that was if you wanted to download it, you can bring it down to this Bootstrap master. And then I've opened up, I've got a file, my sample file that I'm running on is under Bootstrap, master, docs, examples, there's starter template. And you can just kind of start working on this, the starter template.
So you created examples. No, I found
no, but it was already created. You just bring it right down, and this lets you start working. You just do the code, and so right here I just put in one of these glyphs. Where is my starter? All right, I put in a button for a star, the Glypicon star. But let me let's take a look at one of our other Glypicons that we want to use. The Glypicon inbox. Make sure. So Glypicon inbox. I suspect if you remember this naming convention, this is what you would want to know if you were going to use this control in Fawn Awesome. So I guess that where it gets to our naming convention. So for MyRise, we'd want to just know where does the font come from. But if you're going to use the Twitter Bootstrap, I'm going to just go ahead and put something in here. And hit F12, you can see that we now have, I guess I called it both our star, but this uses the button style and the star style.
Yeah, well, you just didn't change the text right after, right?
Yes. So let me just inbox.
You always want to change the word star to inbox there. maybe you can do it on the wrong one. That way everything can go wrong in this.
Did I get that one right? Oh, yeah.
The star inbox and the inbox star and have a true first draft user interface. Oh, no, you did it right.
So looks like there's their button behavior. There's a hover, and there's a click state. So one thing I'm noticing on this one, this does not behave like your typical button. There's a hover state, and then there's an on-click state. This one almost behaves more like a a menu widget. But when I'm thinking for just making an example of a Font Awesome button control. In fact, well, I guess I would go back. So this is kind of how you can put it in there, just using the classes. Are there any UI examples, Sean, that you know of for data entry for Font Awesome? Otherwise, we can just go through the controls and view stuff. Are you familiar for data entry? Because I think that's, at some point, that'll be our big mystery. We've got buttons. Here's some data entry. Might be kind of good to work on some data entry stuff.
Now, I don't know of anything out in the wild that we can look at on the web.
So you can have an action that's embedded that doesn't look too vertically stackable.
Do they have an example form that's all run by Font Awesome?
Or for Twitter Bootstrap data entry form?
Yeah.
Let me see. Because that's the thing, it seems like Font Awesome, from what I've looked, it looks like it's a read-only type of design.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't change, the question in my mind, I wouldn't want to change a Font Awesome character.
You mean Twitter Bootstrap?
If I wanted to change something, it must be extensible, is what I was trying to say. That I could take a standard Bootstrap thing, widget, make changes, but then it wouldn't replace the widget. It would be a new extension, my widget.
Okay. Yeah, so what would be an example of something you could think of? So these are the standard items that they have here. Are there any specific items we could kind of, this responsive embed obviously is using YouTube, and I can access YouTube from here, ironically. No, you could access YouTube and you could tell me what's on there, but we can have some panels, list groups. I'm trying to think of what would be the best styles to kind of pull off. So we have drop down. So I think we've kind of covered how to simulate these glyphicons, but I guess we don't have we could try to just simulate this page as is. What would be the most valuable template, you think, to just kind of build that would be reusable? Maybe a tile like this?
I think of a form that would have one or two variations on a drop-down input affordance, and then one or two variations on checkboxes, and one or two variations on radio buttons, and just go through those real basic form elements.
All right, let's...
So that you could then, if you were doing your own form, you'd have all those form elements there that you as a starting point.
So we want a data entry page for Bootstrap, I wonder.
Entry fields with Bootstrap in a form. The top one sounds like what I was. And single page CRUD. See, CRUD being what? Create, rename, update, and delete.
All right.
So that way it gives you the basic stuff.
All right, so we can put in a Bootstrap form. It's just Add that, and the you know, the big part is having your script source appropriately in there. So hopefully this will contain everything we need. And let's put in a form. So here's the form that's here. Let's kind of see how this responds. So I kind of like how it responds here, where it, although that's interesting. So as it gets smaller, it single stacks.
Right.
And as you bring it across, I think ideally you'd want it to move as a group.
Because the example had two data entry fields on one line.
Yeah.
Right. As you make it wider, still, then yeah.
Let's take a look.
Which actually shows, I think, a little glitch in their form design, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't resize the way you'd want from a usability point of view, because the first name and last name was associated as being in the left column, but actually that column's not defined. It's just visually a column on the page. But as the page resizes, that column isn't defined somewhere as a style, or it doesn't have a container around it.
Well, and it looks like they put it in a different div. So if you were to move it down here and just put it in the same. Okay. So there has a span 5. So in the span 5, that looks like how they have it alternated here. So span 5. Wonder what would happen if you were just to copy this.
So now it doesn't go to the next line. So they're all on one line when they're the widest, and then they
Yeah.
go.
So something like this is probably a little bit closer. However, we want it to either be stacked like this, but we always want the text to be left aligned when it comes out. But
Right. Which in the really old days would mean, instead of putting a space there, back before style sheets even, instead of putting a space between the label input box, you'd have to put a non-breaking character.
yes,
So
yep.
one word.
And so I'm thinking within the span, you define a couple different span classes. So, yeah, this guy goes across 3 columns, but then perhaps within it, you indicate that this is a 2-column span.
Yeah, well, and your outer class is a well span 8.
Yes.
A little small on the screen. I'm trying. I wonder if that doesn't control the method of wrap, because that span 3 is just like that, a 3-column wide. When we were talking last time, we talked about that this is like what, a 12-column page, and they're saying, okay, this we're gonna take up 3 of these, so it's going to be a 1/4 page wide, right? Span 3 in a 12-column page.
Okay. Let's take a. So you want to take a look at that well span?
Yeah, because the method by which the styling that allows first name the label to go on top of first name the entry box, I don't think would be in that span 3. It would be in the well span.
Arrow should render starting off with a simple set of span 8, span 4. Wonder why it doesn't say well span.
Well, see, he's thinking it's because inside well span it has a margin left 8 pixels, right? That's what he's.
Okay.
that's when there's a desktop view, but now the second column doesn't automatically fix itself when you test the smaller width.
I'm not sure if I'm following what their issue is.
Yeah, me either. Well, it's a real specific issue that we're talking about visualization that I haven't actually seen visualized. I mean, he has code there. He doesn't have a real just example of how it's wrapping and how he wants it to wrap.
Okay. Well, maybe we don't want to get too much into it other than to know that,
Yeah.
there's something responsive, and what they have here as opposed to, I guess they kind of have a concept of a breakpoint though, right? Because you'll notice that this thing is...
They have that breakpoint at which last name is still at the end of the top row.
Yeah.
What you really want is as it breaks, you want the label and the input to both go down.
Yes.
In my mind, from a usability point of view. Which, yeah, see, I don't know enough about how span 3 is defined.
Yeah, well, span 3, my understanding is that shows how many columns it goes across. Like if we were to move it like your first name, if we made it like this, they would always be stacked on the left, I think.
Let's try that out.
See, prove me a liar. Yeah. No, that did not do what I thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm with you. I'm not exactly sure what the span 1, span 3. It seems like it makes logical sense when I read it as far as just readability, but then I don't quite understand the behavior that class is controlling.
I gotcha. Well, yeah, so we're going to need the physical design, but...
Well, let's we could go into the spans then. And that is, that's kind of what we're trying to understand too, is how wide will things be and what can we expect it to be? Start a template. I think this is our
columns, 3 unequal columns.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. It's a visual.
So this is the grid system.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a related cousin to percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, so those span 3s, if I'm following, say that as this works, we want those to be in equal columns, and if we put company in a span 4, it would be in a wider column than 2 name fields that are in a span 3.
Yes, and so we want to have the each one of these guys within its own span.
That way the label and the text box stays together.
And the closing div tags. So we've made it in terms of when it gets small, it keeps it to the left. But what we want now is that each one of these span threes, I guess, become, cover the larger column.
Well,
Or maybe we
yeah.
get rid of the span on the text boxes too.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
I think this has something to do. We always have to be aware of the container versus the control.
Well, see, I like, as a form design, I like now how at least the label and the data entry box stay together.
Yeah, I think I found that the label should normally be at the bottom. I worked with a company, Navigation Arts, and they were a big fan of that. Let me just move that to the bottom.
The label underneath the text box?
Yes.
Ah.
Well, you'll notice that's consistent with how paper forms are. And that's why I always sign my name in the wrong spot, too.
Yeah, because you get to the data entry box before you get to the label telling you what to do with the data entry box.
Yep. Also seems like company ought to go at the top, or first name and last name ought to be grouped together.
Right.
All right, so company first name, last name.
And then when it gets small.
Yep, and you'll notice too that right in the text box it has,
It has the label again. What tells it in our code here to do that?
that is part of the Twitter Bootstrap. That's how they handle text boxes. That's so nothing about the code does that. It's the same thing for how jQuery mobile works. It just picks up the tag. It says, oh, all text boxes are styled this way.
Well, but the actual text is that placeholder text, right?
Whatever you call it. So if you, yep. So.
Or instead of company, it could be your company, right? Whatever, but just.
Yep. But I've recently, yes, it could be your company. Oh, to be consistent with everything else.
I'm just, yeah. And I was just trying to make sure that I understood how the code worked. Making a change that makes some sense, yep. But that actually shows a change. Yeah.
So I guess the next question, though, would be, how can we get this thing to go further? So what if we were to make this one, if we were just to progressively make this one 6 and this one 9? I'll start from scratch here, 12.
Well,
nothing works there.
But that means it'll wrap at a different point, right? Because the 9 is a wider column than the 6. So
okay.
When it gets smaller, the 9 will wrap sooner.
Okay.
It's just not what we intended, but I think that's Don't we want to take the first name and last name and put them in yet another div so that they would be on one line when they're wide and then break to 2 lines?
Those would be the guys that we'd want to have. Okay. Yep. So we have the, because it's a narrower concept.
Yeah, right. Where company is just on one, I keep saying line, one row. First name and last name could be on one row when it's wide. And again, I'm more thinking in terms of how to make this so that, right. And now we're going to have our wrap problem again, right? That as it gets smaller, last name will wrap, but the text box stays on the second row.
Yep.
Okay. So we've circled around that now I understand how to make them, how to cluster them. And the only little nitpicky thing that I still want to figure out is how to make that input box actually stick to the label.
Well, I wonder if we could put a class 2 underneath them.
Huh? That might do.
No, there's a noble guess, though.
Yeah.
So what we want to have happen is when it breaks, we want these guys come as a package.
And look at our divs. The input and the text following it are never packaged in any sort of div in the code that I'm looking at, right? Both input, yeah.
So
the input and the label, so I should call it.
Yep, the input and the label.
So now somehow the input and the label for first name and the input and label for last name should each be wrapped in something so that there's no break between the input and label.
Okay, so
right?
we could, and wrapping is HTML's way of saying div.
Right. Yeah, they should be a div or a span, but yeah. Well, this shows that I need to spend more time just doing CSS. If I hadn't done that little site last week, this all would have been really rusty. It's still rusty. So now it doesn't. Make that span 3 at top, like about a span 9.
Let me just go to the R2. It thinks it has I've got an extra div tag open too. Just,
yeah.
That doesn't mean anything though. So what was your thought there, Sean?
The two new divs that we just defined are in a div that's perhaps too narrow. So instead of,
and I think I lost my form tag too.
That might be the div that you took out. Oh. I thought a form ended in a /div. It ends in a /form. Cool.
I thought so. I mean, it seems like it should be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't know where its body came from. Oh, it's up there. But we still have the breaking part. It doesn't go across all three.
And that span 3, I think, might not be wide enough. Make that like a span 9.
Oh, let's take off these spans here.
Okay. Yep. Different approach. It's the same notion. Yep.
Because it's matter. I mean, I think this is all just finding the right level to put the control on. So this is what we had before. Up, I see, and it automatically put extra divs right here. Div.
Right.
All right. It doesn't think this should be there. Well, maybe this one just goes. Still getting that same thing at Well, it doesn't. It breaks them nice. No,
Yeah,
it
and see
doesn't.
how inbox and star do exactly what we want.
Yeah.
And see, that breaks really nice, but then when it gets narrow enough, see first name goes under?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as the client doesn't want two entry fields in the same row, we can fulfill any requirement now.
Yeah. And so this is the part that I don't like so much about Bootstrap is it adds this level of unpredictability. Whereas if you say like, all right, well, once the screen is this size, we'll take this layout where all the text boxes are vertically aligned and the labels are underneath it. That's skinny mode. This one kind of says, well, on a case-by-case scenario, we'll break things out. Like you could, move it. Thought there was a way I could have, right here. And then this case, sometimes first name will be, under here. For data entry, it should just all be consistent, it seems like to me. I mean, because someone's going to say, where's the first name field? And the troubleshooting guy could say, well, how wide is your screen? So, I mean,
right.
And so that's one of the drawbacks, but I mean, that's what when you're developing and you have a spandex outside type of thing, you still want to have something fixed on the inside, I'm thinking.
Well, and a variation, my little saw in something using like Bootstrap is that you tend to then start designing from the way Bootstrap behaves.
Yes.
But if you remember when we started, we had the label, company first name and last name, in front of the data entry box.
Yes.
But we wanted those to wrap below the data entry box, so we moved them after. Well, What about when the client looks at all this and says, hey, wow, I love how it says company underneath the company data entry box once it gets into the skinny mode, but I still want company in front of the text entry box when it's in wider mode.
Yes.
Well, that's just not quite how Bootstrap seems to work.
Exactly. And that's the part where
a client takes that and says, okay, then we're fine, meeting's over. That usually then becomes something that bothers them meeting after meeting.
Yes. Yep. So, and that's the part where you kind of have to, just kind of buy into whatever. You don't have as much control, I guess, over the data entry. This one's probably a little too fluid for user input. Maybe for these touchscreen things, that's fine. But
well, and you have all kinds of flexibility. You can't say that it's not really flexible. It's super flexible. But in a real custom project, it seems like you always, at some point, in some niggling way, reach the limit of that flexibility and end up having to say to the client, well, like I say, that's just not quite how Bootstrap works. We can do it in way A or way B and maybe even way C or D. But these, as we lay it out within these divs, within these styles, this functionality, this visual display comes in little packages, right?
Yeah.
That if the label's in front of, it wraps to the top, and if it's behind, it wraps to the bottom. And I don't know how you can more.
And so now my thought is let's take I don't Bootstrap's not bad. It's what keeps everything nice and tight. Let's see
how hard this has been to do from scratch, Tony. I mean, that's quite an advanced functionality to just kind of put a few styles on a page. We need to give Bootstrap its due that it's pretty amazing. And
yes.
This is all really tested and cross-browser compatible and everything.
It's cross-browser compatible, and my thought is now let's take that idea and then combine it with a couple of. Well, so I guess my thought is we could do one of two things. One is we could take that idea and then apply the harmonize the fixed user inputs with the kind of the spandex container that's keeping everything nice and tight, or we could just kind of not try to go any further with the integration and just mimic a couple of these styles. What do you think would be the most valuable?
Well, I'd like to make sure that we really understand as far as just mimic a few more styles.
Okay.
That might be the less aggressive path.
Okay. Let's do that. So we've got and we could just kind of go through this what they have here, do we want to go ahead and just mimic this? Let's mimic this view right here. I've got I'm going to make something called our Twitter Bootstrap. Oops, and I got to check this in. Oops, projects. And we're very close to having our SICDom domain name set up for this one, which is kind of neat.
What's the domain name again?
This will eventually be irise.sicdom.com.
SICDom.
And for a little introduction on SICDom, we had that people. Yeah. I think I've got a little write-up on it. Right here. Oh, I thought I at least had the name spelled out on it, but I didn't. Let me at least grab I could spell the name out here. It is. And let's grab a notepad.
That are good. There's a low-hanging fruit. These are more difficult. And then these are nice to haves. And then these are not relevant. Right. Which is good. That's what you want. She'll be able to go in and get exactly what you want. You know what I always think it's worth to say the truth.
I need to update this wiki, and I'll provide a background on SICDom because I can see this being useful.
Yeah. At some point, people always want to know where the acronym came from.
Yeah. All right. And now we are on here, and we can make our thing called Bootstrap.
She says it's there. She says it's in there, and I said, well, if that had been in there, that doesn't tell me anything.
All right.
It doesn't tell me it did the squat.
So we got our Bootstrap starter template. It seems like the prefix Twitter seems to be getting dropped from Twitter Bootstrap.
I would agree. Yeah. In usage on the project that I used, it was just called Bootstrap all the time.
So style guide, I'll call it just Bootstrap then.
There you go.
Let's get header one.
And then, like that, Bootstrap's such a descriptive name because it implies that, okay, here are these beginning styles to get you started. But actually, in the couple of projects that I've worked on where Bootstrap comes up, one of the first things that also comes up is, well, let's try not to extend Bootstrap unless we absolutely have to, because then you have a whole bunch of unique styles that aren't being maintained by the Bootstrap community. So there's a real push to not have it be Bootstrap, but have it really just be the whole boot.
Interesting. Have it be the whole boot. So all right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the controls here first. So Twitter Bootstrap has a button control. but it doesn't, the button is a static size right here.
You want to
And
get
there's
wider? It gets wider?
Nope, it doesn't get wider. It stays the same size.
Right.
Unless of course you wanted to, I bet you if you put a span on it, if I put a span 3, span F12. That doesn't do anything.
It could be you need to make it real wide to make it visual, like span 9 or 12.
All right. Yeah.
No.
That's all right. We love the color commentary. No worries, man. I need, like I said, I need people to recreate my office environment. So I need someone to sound like a dog barking at the door, and I also need someone to sound like a 7-year-old kid wiping out on a scooter and skinning their knee. Yeah. So, but folks are saying like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm talking while you're on the phone." I was like, "It's just not loud enough to sound like my office." So, all right. So anyway, so here's I'm not sure exactly how that class works, but it's basically the same size. So what we want to do now is let's just make a section here. All right, so let's make a Glypicon. What do we want to call these? Glypicons? Because that's what Twitter calls them.
Yeah, you were pointing out at the beginning of all this that if you rename it, then it just makes it harder to follow.
Yeah.
Is there a new name?
There you go, using my own words against me.
I thought it was to support you.
I was trying not to use the Glypicon.
Well, and you were saying how that it got renamed and you wonder why. I wonder if it wasn't just one team used one name and another team used a different name, and it is just because of the organization of the people who were developing this and maintaining it.
Yeah.
Which is a poor reason for the name change. It's a very practical, understandable reason, but it's not a real good justifiable reason.
Well, that's where I kind of like what HL7's doing with their OID registry. I know it's kind of it looks weird, but I kind of like the idea of just a generalized place where you keep all your vocabulary of everything. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
You know, if we were doing a true job, if we were truly ontologists, we would register all of our names right over here, this HL7 OID registry. We're not, but you come up with if you come up with a vocabulary called, Sean's list of characters and stuff like that, you can create an organizational identifier called like the People Who Jam organizational identifier, and each thing we create, this is basically a data dictionary. So we have, if we were to create Glypicons, like under People Who Jam Glypicons, we create the name of each one of them here, and we could register it up here, and all the metadata information's contained up at HL7.
So then other people, instead of creating their own, could use ours.
Exactly. So when they see your standard, when you're making it, they could say, oh, it's whatever, and it has this OID number. I can go up to this one place to learn more about it, and I could say, hey, we just took this directly from Twitter Bootstrap. Here's the URL. Something like that.
Right.
So anyways, we are going to make the inbox Glypicon. I'm trying to remember how I got to the list of them. Let me just open up here. I'll just Google for Twitter Bootstrap. Actually, maybe we'll do a naming thing one time. Next one. Twitter here. Bootstrap, Claypicon. I'm going to have to learn how to spell Claypicons.
Yeah, you left out an I.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, so let's make a... I kind of like the idea of just starting from the top left.
Yeah.
So, copy. And there's a couple things, you indicated there is a benefit if you have a data sheet. So I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. We could make a Twitter Bootstrap data sheet. And if you, we'll call this Bootstrap. And we want to go ahead and just create our own asterisk Claypicon. It supports fonts in here. So you could put this right here. Rename. Claypicon. And then, so this is Claypicon name. This is Claypicon font awesome. And this is Claypicon image. Image is the only truly interoperable one. So if we were to go to Claypicon font awesome, which is the asterisk, right here, you can select, copy, and you can paste it here, and then you'll just want to, whatever this value is that's going into it, you'll want to make sure that it's font awesome. I won't show you it right here, I guess, but if you're to make a tile or something like that, you could have Bootstrap, get record, let's give ourselves a little bit of working room here before we make it smaller. Actually, no, this will be font awesome. And I should, for proper conventions, I'm supposed to have a, I've been told I'd be a horrible Linux person because I have horrible with my upper and lowercase consistency here.
Yeah. Well, it just doesn't work in Linux if you get the
Yeah.
case wrong. Or Windows is too forgiving.
So here, if you were to change this to your style called font awesome, let's make a style called font awesome, or just yeah, me as well. I'll just do Bootstrap. And part of our Bootstrap on font awesome, we just want to make sure that everything is set to that. This is only going to work on computers that have font awesome. So if you don't, I've worked with folks that don't have font awesome installed, and that means it's just not going to work.
Right.
Done, and whenever we're in Bootstrap, all of our styles will be Bootstrap font awesome. All right. And you now can see this. Let's make this Bootstrap font awesome. Let's make it a.
Yeah, let's talk. No, fine. I'm just uploading the SharePoint that they gave us. Yeah, they gave us their manuals, and we have data dictionary, and I'm trying to get a look at it.
So here's our Clipograph asterisk.
Not quite an asterisk, though, is it?
Let's maybe make it a little bit bigger.
It seems pretty big. I just expect the asterisk to be a little pointier, not bigger.
Let's
there
see.
it is. Bigger, pointier. Yeah.
Well, then let's see what we had for the Clipographs. Just make sure that we copied it correctly.
That's kind of like a blowfish, not an asterisk.
Yeah. Let's see. Where do they have it? Did they keep it under controls? I know it is under controls.
Is it? You're beyond me here. I keep wanting to use Git more. Every so often, a friend or colleague will give me a little speech about how wonderful Git is, and I even believe them. But then I don't do enough development to just really hang around in Git.
Well, I envision us using that a little bit more often. Maybe I grabbed the wrong asterisk, because that does not look.
It's kind of close, but it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's just take a look, see if Font Awesome has a different asterisk. Or maybe I have an older version of the font library. Let's see. Roll down here. Maybe I grabbed the wrong. The Font Awesome. I think I grabbed the wrong asterisk. Just copy.
Okay.
And that's the neat thing about the data sheet. I'm just going to update my vocabulary on. All right, and edit paste from external. I just paste. Well, there's our glyphograph. So it's nice with the copy and paste. So we have, we've got the component defined, glyphograph axis. We want it to look like this. So. And we'll just make it so when you mouse over, it turns all blue too. And then lastly, we're going to want to have an image because you are going to have someone that doesn't have the ability to run this somehow. Or I always like to have a backup.
Okay.
And we don't have to quite get into the tile thing yet, but that's how we would be able to have you used tiles before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you helped me. I did a. I presented multiple vehicles for Ford in tiles.
okay.
You had to create a little construct that was the vehicle with some information about the vehicle, you know, a vehicle picture with some information, and then we took that and put it in tiles
Okay.
so that it would lay out on the page nicely as part of a search result, actually.
Okay. I think I recall that now.
It was amazing. Yeah, I just couldn't get the search result to display the way I needed it to at all, and you just mentioned tiles, and suddenly it all worked.
It is. It's the trick is like it's so hard to figure out how to get the thing to work, and then once you do, the trick is how do I just make it repeat itself?
Yeah.
So all right. So we've got this. So we can kind of come up with our own style. So I guess there's also a Bootstrap has a text center, like Bootstrap normal text style. And their normal scenario, the text is centered. Oh, we're calling it Bootstrap. All right. So we have that, and now we have this next item, which is actually we want to still do the button, right? Let's do the button. So the button has a rounded gray corner, a mouse over effect, and then it has a interesting, when there's two buttons, there's like an on click. Let's just kind of start with that mouse over, and when you click, it makes the text go down. So we've replicated the look and feel of Bootstrap. Now we want to, of this, I guess it needs to line it up more. Trying to think of the simplest way to do it. I guess we'll just, seems like there ought to be a more scientific way.
Scientific way to do what?
To get the this top image to align with the bottom one. So anyway, so that's that guy. Now we want to make a button. So there's a couple different ways. I wonder, you could style this as Bootstrap Font Awesome. And let's see if we can get that style to do what we want it to do. Can the button label, looks like our button label were limited. We can only use the standard characters. I don't think we can put it from the outside. Let's see.
Now, does this bring up, for the people who do install Font Awesome, could you make the font of that label Font Awesome and go about this that way?
We're about to find out. Let's see.
Oh, well, good. I just acted as straight man here.
No, it does not look like you can. Well, let me, oh, you know what? You still can. There's buttons are not considered main. They're considered forms.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that.
Oops.
Oh, there we go.
So you now have this. But it looks like our style is just it's not quite matching.
Oh, it's just smaller.
Yep.
Right?
So let's see what else we want to change on that. Oops, I've got compete. I can't put Explorer into Chrome. That'll cause, they won't let you drag and drop. All right, so let's make the button a little bit bigger. This guy is 40. Let's make him 40 by 40. Or 40 by 60. Oops, 60 by 40, I meant. 60 by 40. Oh, but you can type in other things too.
So you can change fonts in the label. Cool.
We can change fonts in the label, and you can have, let's see if this,
Well, can you change size, font size in that label? Because we want the asterisk to be bigger, right? Not just the button to be bigger, but the asterisk to be bigger.
oh yes, and that's controlled by the style sheet, or the style. So we want the, that's right, so we want the font to be bigger. So we'll go to our Bootstrap. So 36.
There you go.
All right, so we probably want the size to be a little bit bigger on the, so the font size probably is right, but let's make, thinking the height, the height needs to be a little bit bigger and probably center too. You'll see that the WYSIWYG is not exactly what you get.
Always a helpful feature.
Yeah. So pretty good, but you'll notice that this kind of has this gray thing, and Font Awesome seems to have a clear color instead of the shading and a light gray. So we still need to, let's take a look, and we're going to edit the style some more. So we go into the form, and we want the background to be white. In terms of the borders, this is the part where it kind of gets into the famous eyeballing. I know there is a color. Let's just kind of make this gray for right now, and we'll make all the corners a rounded 6.
Well, and now we've just moved into the area of why you need a design degree.
Why I need a design degree?
Yeah, because I always make my corners, someone on the team will always look at it and say, gee, Sean, those are ugly, why? Everyone knows they should be 6 or they should be 12 or whatnot. It's like, no, I didn't know that.
Well, all I know is I know where the place is where I can change them.
That's a nice looking button.
Yeah, but it's still, it's missing something. If you notice a mouse over, no mouse over. But I guess we need to have a link to something. So we'll have a request.
I'm trying to think. Don't buttons have a place somewhere where you can configure mouse over, mouse out on click? Yep. There are like 5 states to a button. Right?
Exactly. So we need to we need to now style that. But you're right. Yeah. So it has a button has just a hover and a on down. So right now.
There's the restful state, which is what we have here, on hover.
Yep, we need an on hover. So
click, and then so that because you can have a button that when you click on it, it kind of explodes visually, and then you can have the state after it's been clicked. I don't know what the word for that is.
Well, I don't think that's more of a hyperlink thing. Visited.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about link, hover down, and visited?
Yeah, link, hover down, and visited.
Now, we'll see if the button control supports that. If it not, what we'll need to do is have a section. So that's the form part there. I don't know if we can, what our options are on the button. Let's see. So, which is fine, because then we can just do this with a section. In fact, that's most of the time I find out that that's the default go-to section. So,
Okay.
Yep. So, all that means is that we would actually, we'll take a section, we'll wrap this in a section, wrap in section. Then we're going to take this section and we're going to clear the content. So we'll call this, make sure we'll give it a name. So it's a Clape Con. And then we're going to clear the content. And we'll put in a text box right here. How big is this? Actually, oh, so I guess we could just use this guy.
You've got him defined.
Wrap in section. Bootstrap, font awesome. And so now all the styles that we had on the button, we'll just want to move those over to the link style. Oops. And of course we need the section. Twitter Bootstrap. Or, oh, it's Clapeicon.
Yeah. And since you might do more than one of these in a project, it really should probably be glyph icon asterisk, right?
We'll see. My thought is this will be kind of a dumb one. This is right now it's just populated by a data sheet.
Ah, okay.
So,
data sheet.
But if we were to start making our own ones, like our own asterisk, we make a style for asterisk, and everyone would refer to it as asterisk. So right now we're starting at very generic. There's something called a glyphicon. It can be populated from a data sheet. So here's our mouse over, and here's our click. Nothing too great here. Make sure. Oh, events. All right, cool. So let's work on our mouse overs now. So we've got, it's using our Twitter Bootstrap, and let's first get that, what we defined here on the form, corner radius of 6, yada, yada, yada. We now actually want to have that here. So when there's a link, it's a size 36. If we want to have that, actually no, we'll just style the border here. So size 1, this, use that recent gray, make them a 6, and we're going to give them a white background, a hover state, same type of thing. The background gets slightly darker.
Right.
And he gets a gray background. Perfect.
You need the corner radius on the hover?
Oh, yes. Thank you. And then when you click it down, we could, well, let's go back to that one. But I think there's something like where when it goes down, it moves everything down. Like, so the vertical line goes down or something like that.
Oh.
Up. Why is that? And done. Let's make our own section here real quick. And Bootstrap. It's interesting that the link isn't going anywhere. Let's change this behavior here. Just make sure that the behavior is actually working. So we'll just make this open in a new window. All right, so that's working. We just needed the style to be painting here. It's interesting that it doesn't seem to show all the links there, because the font awesome, there's a link. There should show a border. Is it pulling? Let's just see if it's pulling from the.
Your line, though. Well, okay, that's the main.
Let's just put something weird on there. See if it's pulling from there. Huh.
Right.
So if that's the case, then what we'll have to do is we're going to just make a couple different, styles. So we'll just clear this one out. So this one's going to be the normal. This will be the bootstrap button. So we'll duplicate bootstrap font. This will be bootstrap button. Duplicate bootstrap button hover. Duplicate bootstrap button down, right?
Right.
So button down and hover. And since it uses that style, I'm going to just grab some font awesome icons somewhere just so we can, I guess I'll grab our asterisk.
Yeah.
We won't worry about the behaviors yet. So this is just here. This is going to be called button. It's interesting that the WYSIWYG does not show up. I typed the word button in there. It just
Should it be
doesn't.
a color thing?
I don't know. It's just part of the WYSIWYG, which is just, goes to show why you'd want to have this controlled by your library, or images are nicer too. But yeah, so font awesome, and they technically go together.
So as I put together what we've been doing here, though, we started with a button, and essentially we've decided, okay, we're just going to build our own button.
Yeah,
button doesn't do
exactly. The native iRise button widget doesn't do what you want. So we need to define 3 styles. We need to define a button style, oops. Let me just wrap these guys and move them out of the way. Wrap in section. Yeah, so here's our button style. We actually will want to give it the proper name. But you can see that's kind of where putting the name directly in, using the font natively in iRise, there's some kind of funky things that aren't quite perfect there.
Right. And that was one of the questions coming into today in my mind is, could we just use the font? Because somehow that just seems, elegant. I can see why we're not doing it, but
Exactly. So you're kind of, see like here's the font and it's kind of starting to look the way that you want. Alternatively, you could skip a couple steps and, so right now we're making a style, we're almost treating, and we're not getting a nice view. Alternatively, the other way of making this, this button right here is if you were to go to PowerPoint, one of my favorite iRise tools, and you made a new slide. You could just have a make a control, and instead of doing it from the data sheet natively in iRise, and again, I'm not sure, jury's still out on this one, but I do know just treating this one is there's some wisdom in how style sheets work. And so you keep source formatting, and you could have just you could make your own button style here. So you could insert, I think, insert draw. So I guess you would use your icon here. I'm trying to think of just the most efficient way of doing that. So I guess you'd still use the icon here. You have button. The nice thing about using the icon is your text shows up nice. So let's just save this as a picture. Copy.
could you just use PowerPoint as a graphics program here?
It's my font. It's my interoperability tool, like that converts all things into a common image. So yeah, it is my graphics tool, but I use it more for.
Since I'm on Linux, I'll have to check out whether OpenOffice Draw does the same thing or whether like Google Draw does the same thing or something.
I would think so. I mean, but it seems like at the end of the day, right now, the PNG is a very interoperable file.
Yeah.
I'll put this in my delete every day. And so since I'm taking this one natively from Font Awesome, I'm going to use the Font Awesome word. Because, customers are great at saying line item vetoing frameworks. So like, I like the graphics of that framework. I just want the behavior of another one. So
Right.
since we're going to steal directly from Font Awesome, we'll use the name.
Well, and Tony, this has been a lot of fun, but I need to go off this here in a few minutes. I need to return a couple of phone calls here.
Okay.
Before.
Sounds good. I'll let me just kind of speed this one up. So this one's just it's
amazing how quickly this time went.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've explored a little bit, but I don't know, to what extent we've really explored the data entry.
Yeah. Well, but Yeah, I know I have some learnings, and that's the thing. Like I said, I was questioning when you demoed it before whether we could just use the font, and we explored that a little more as to why you kind of can't.
Yeah, it's almost there. It's almost functionality.
And we were talking about, one of the things is if you came up with a little common samples document, or we developed it here over time, we could, just like you're doing in the styles, we could kind of pre-sync the several states that you would need buttons to be put in, like one font awesome glyph icon. And so you'd have all that kind of structure around it so that in a project you wouldn't have to go from scratch. You could just change glyph, copy and put in different glyph icons.
And my thought is you would just change styles within a style. So we have a button style that has a asterisk style.
Ah, there we go.
And so now that's how you are combining all your items. So you like the idea of the Bootstrap container. You put in a style right here, and now this is your Bootstrap button. And we can just clear formatting. And since we don't have to have, since we're not using the font anymore, the Bootstrap button, we can just use, say use default, and so it doesn't mess up our WYSIWYG thing anymore. So that way, what we did, so I guess this is kind of a good point, is we took what we liked, which is we liked this icon right here, and we used the Bootstrap button just to define the outer level, but we decided not to use the Bootstrap function, button for its graphic ability. So we've kind of limited the scope of the Bootstrap button font specifically for the containing button.
And we reinforced my preconception from other projects that just there's no reason to even start making a button in iRise. I always overrun the button and have to just create it myself out of the section.
Yeah, and that's the part where it's you have the sections there, and then later on when people want to change the style of, and I think that's just because the frameworks are so flexible, nothing looks like a button anymore. The thing I like about this design now is,
would you say that that's true of all those? And in the top menu, I don't know what you call that, but that top row menu has 3 clusters of icons.
Yes.
The left cluster starts with the T there for your face.
Yep, your text widget
is useless to me.
That's true. So in terms of, I like this guy. I like the text widget, obviously. I do not like the image widget. I use section is better than image. Table's still good. Menu, I still haven't, the jury's out, but I think at some point I won't use that anymore. I still like the horizontal rule. Tile's very handy.
Yeah.
These guys are still useful. You need the text input widget to move data to and from a data. These guys, you need them for moving to and from a data sheet. But these other ones I don't really use yet.
Yeah, the ones that give you the quick look and feel, I always seem to overrun the default look and feel in any kind of custom project and then have to redo it anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so this has been fun. My thought is, in terms of the style, the way that you would just change your Bootstrap button is in the library, you would just have a style called, instead of Tony Calise, it'd be font, We figure out the name, but you're like, oh, I don't want it to be an asterisk, I want it to be a whatever. Well, this is a highly customizable button now. You go to any button you want, and if you want it to be a different button, you just select a different icon.
Right. Which once you have that, scaffolding is just going to be really quick and slick and easy.
Exactly, and that lets you change it on the fly when someone says, I want to use a whatever. You can say, show me what it is, and the image is right there.
Right.
One of the things we'll notice, though, is that there's just seems to be different sizes. That's the part where the font is more elegant because that can, you can make a font bigger and smaller much quicker. Whereas using the style sheet approach, you have to finagle it through a couple of different systems. But the neat thing is you can iterate. If you want to iterate on sizes, you do that through your style master. And then if you want to iterate on which one you want, you just do the drop down. So when you have the meeting with your customer and they say, hey, I want the asterisk, well, you select the asterisk style. And if you find out that further styling needs to be done, well, then you can do that, and you just stubbed it out. So let's say your customer says, that's great, but I need the asterisk to be bigger. Well, you'd make a duplicate of it called make bigger. So you capture the requirements, I need my asterisk style, and then you can go back and just make it bigger. So anyways, that's I think that's, I guess, that was our coverage today here. So
Yeah, well, thanks. This is cool.
So quick through. So if we were to go forward then on this one, you'd see like we'd want to just make up all the buttons. Do you think there'd be value in that one? Because
well, there'd be value.
Oh, go ahead.
If we look at all those font awesome glyph icons, I'm thinking they must cluster, right? That there are some types of glyph icons, and so you might want to have an array of buttons capture the different types.
And that's the part where I'm thinking, since we've already established that the glyph icons are really the Latin of the. This is the glyph icon Latin, and we're really just interested in the image. That perhaps it's good to separate the image from the control, right? Maybe we just want to, all we're stealing from Font Awesome here that we're prototyping is the fact that their buttons are round and they have a gray mouse over. But I haven't seen anything too much else like in terms of this other stuff. We can go over breakpoints and how those work. But that's consistent with all the libraries. But I think the UI, the look and feel of the UI is basically, from what I've seen, it's just a matter of taking all the Font Awesome icons and then maybe making some templates that use the Font Awesome icons. So Twitter Bootstrap really might just be 3 styles for their buttons and a couple of the other ones. And it's a combination. It's Twitter Bootstrap plus the Font Awesome icon. But anyways, we'll continue, and we'll have a session tomorrow too. If the one tomorrow will be more tailored towards landing page and the UI, so less conceptual. So
Cool.
Awesome, Sean. This time did fly, so I'll cut you loose. I'll leave you to wander.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Yeah. See ya. Bye.